Hi ladies, ever find yourself sitting across from a man and wondering, what do I even talk to him about? You want to go beyond the small talk, beyond the weather and the how was your day? But where do you even begin? If you've ever been there, you're not alone, and you're in the right place. Here are 10 real conversation topics that not only keep things interesting but also create true connection. Because let's be honest, a deep talk? That's way sexier than just good looks. Ask about what lights him up. There's a kind of magic that happens when someone talks about the thing they love most. You know that moment, their voice gets louder, their eyes sparkle, and suddenly they're not just talking, they're glowing. That's what happens when you ask a man about what truly lights him up. Not what he does for work, not what he should be doing, but what he wants to be doing, deep in his gut. Most men aren't used to being asked that question, not seriously, at least. They might crack a joke at first or say, I don't really know, because they've never had permission to explore that part of themselves. But if you stay curious and gently push forward, asking something like, if you had a free Saturday with no obligations, what would you do from the moment you wake up? You'll start to see something unfold. Maybe it's fixing up cars in the garage while listening to old rock albums. Maybe it's spending an entire day writing music, building model airplanes, researching family genealogy, or volunteering at an animal shelter. It doesn't matter what it is. What matters is how it makes him feel, and how he comes alive when he talks about it. That passion, whatever it is, holds a key to understanding who he is beneath the surface. It tells you what gives him energy, what brings him joy, what he turns to when life feels heavy. It can show you his sense of discipline, creativity, curiosity, or even his need for solitude. And as a woman who's genuinely interested in him, there's something powerful about saying, without words, I see that fire in you, and I like it. You don't need to become an expert in his interests. If he's into photography and you can't tell the difference between a lens and a light meter, that's fine. What matters is that you care about what it means to him. Let him teach you a little. Ask questions, smile when he gets nerdy, laugh when he gets excited and talks too fast. That's when he feels safe to share more. When a man feels like he can bring his full, unfiltered self to the table, especially the part that he thought no one would really care about, that's where emotional intimacy begins. It's not always about deep, dramatic conversations. Sometimes it's about geeking out over woodworking tools or talking for an hour about the perfect barbecue rub. Those seemingly random things are actually sacred spaces in his heart. And the beautiful thing? The more he sees that you're interested, the more he'll invite you into those passions. He'll want to share the experience with you. You'll go from the girl he's seeing to the woman who gets it. And that shift, subtle but profound, can change everything. Talk dreams, even the crazy ones. Dreams are where we hide the rawest parts of ourselves. They're unfiltered, unedited, and deeply revealing, and yet, they often live in the back of our minds, untouched by daylight. So when you ask a man, what's something you've always wanted to do, but haven't yet, you're not just making conversation. You're handing him a key to unlock a part of himself he may have tucked away years ago. Maybe he wanted to open a surf shop in Costa Rica. Maybe he dreamed of writing a sci-fi novel, climbing Everest, starting a nonprofit, or owning a little ranch where he could raise horses and live a quiet life. It doesn't matter whether the dream is realistic or if it sounds totally out there. What matters is that it exists. That it speaks to something true inside of him, a longing, a hope, a version of life that felt right, even if it was never pursued. And when he tells you these dreams, he's doing more than just talking. He's showing you who he could be, who he wants to be, and sometimes, who he's afraid to be. That vulnerability, masked by excitement or humor, is real. And it's rare. A man's dreams are often shaped by what he values most deeply. If he dreams of traveling the world, maybe he craves freedom. If he wants to build something from scratch, a business, a home, a family, maybe he's driven by legacy, creativity, or purpose. If he dreams of leaving it all behind and living on a mountain, perhaps he's overwhelmed, or simply longing for peace. These aren't just fantasies, they're emotional roadmaps. And when you don't laugh, or roll your eyes, or bring him crashing down with realism, but instead say something like, "That's actually amazing." What do you think has stopped you from doing that? You're offering him a place where he can dream out loud, safely. That's powerful. That's rare. Most men aren't used to being emotionally supported in that way. They're used to dreaming alone, or not at all. But when you hold space for his what-if moments, something changes. He'll start to trust you, not just with the shiny parts of his life, but with the fragile ones too. The ones filled with, maybe someday, and, if I ever get the chance. And who knows, you might inspire him to chase one of those dreams, just by being the first person who believed in it. Sometimes that's all it takes. One person who says, "Why not you?" But even if the dream remains a dream, the conversation you had about it will stay with him. He'll remember that moment when he got to be both bold and soft. When he felt seen, not for what he's done, but for who he could become. And that's not just good conversation. That's connection at its finest. Dive into childhood memories. If you really want to understand someone, not just who they are now, but why they are that way, ask about their childhood. It's in those early years that we build our emotional foundations, form our first ideas of love, safety, identity, and even adventure. So when you ask a man something as simple as, "What were you like as a kid?" or, "What did you love doing before the world told you to grow up?" you're not just making small talk. You're gently tugging on a thread that leads straight to his core. Sometimes you'll get funny stories. How he broke his arm trying to fly off the garage roof with a towel cape, how he used to build blanket forts for his stuffed animals, or how he ate peanut butter sandwiches for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for a solid year. These stories might seem lighthearted, but they reveal so much. You'll see what made him feel brave, what made him feel safe, what made him feel seen. And then, there are the quiet memories, the ones he doesn't talk about often, if at all. Maybe he moved around a lot and never felt like he belonged. Maybe he was a shy kid who found comfort in books or drawing. Maybe he spent a lot of time with a grandparent who shaped his values in ways he still doesn't fully understand. When you make space for these kinds of stories, without rushing, without judgment, you invite him to reconnect with pieces of himself he may have forgotten. You could ask, "Did you have a favorite hiding spot?" or, "What was your favorite thing to do on summer break?" These questions aren't about nostalgia for nostalgia's sake, they're about connecting the dots. They give you a glimpse of the world before life got complicated, before expectations and heartbreak and adult armor. And that glimpse, it's precious. Because when a man shares those early moments, he's inviting you into a version of himself that's unguarded and innocent. It's a place where ego doesn't live. And when you respond with kindness and curiosity, not trying to analyze or fix anything, he learns that it's safe to let you see the little boy who still lives inside him. And here's something few people realize. Our childhood stories often echo in our present lives. A boy who loved organizing his toy soldiers might grow into a man who finds comfort in structure and order. A kid who spent hours rescuing animals might become fiercely loyal, compassionate, and protective in his adult relationships. When you learn about his past, you don't just discover where he's from, you begin to see why he does what he does now. This kind of connection can't be forced. It comes from asking with warmth, listening without interruption, and treating every memory like it matters, because it does. Even the silly ones, maybe especially the silly ones. They're pieces of a puzzle, and when he starts putting them on the table in front of you, that's not just conversation, that's trust. His views on the world. What do you think about? Might be the simplest phrase in the English language, but in the right moment, it becomes a gateway to intimacy. When you ask a man about his views on the world, you're not just fishing for opinions. You're reaching for his framework, how he interprets the world, what he believes is fair or broken, what gives him hope or makes him deeply uneasy. Start anywhere. What do you think about where technology's taking us? Or, how do you feel about how people connect now versus 10 years ago? His answers will likely surprise you, because you'll see not just what he thinks, but how he thinks. Is he hopeful, cynical, analytical, emotionally intuitive? You'll learn whether he trusts systems or individuals, whether he believes change is possible, whether he thinks the future is worth fighting for. These conversations can be thrilling because they go beyond surface-level attraction. They show you how he makes sense of life, the messy, complicated, beautiful life we're all trying to navigate. One man might say, "I think most people are doing their best, even when it doesn't look like it," while another might say, "The world's a mess, and I try to stay out of it." Both statements are revealing. One shows compassion, the other, perhaps burnout. Neither is right or wrong, but both offer you a deeper window into who he is when he isn't performing or pretending. What makes this kind of dialogue powerful is that it's not a debate. You're not trying to win or change each other's minds. You're simply saying, "I want to understand how you see things." And that intention, that humility, creates a container where both people can speak freely. Where vulnerability doesn't feel like a risk, but a gift. And don't be afraid to go big. Ask him what he thinks about love in modern times, or how he defines masculinity in a changing world. Ask what he thinks is missing in society, or what he believes is the most important thing a person can do in their lifetime. These are questions we all think about, even if we don't say them out loud. And when you're the one to bring them to the surface, that's memorable, that's magnetic. You might hear stories about his upbringing, about the teachers who shaped his worldview, about the times he was disappointed by people he trusted. These aren't just political or philosophical statements, they're often rooted in real experience. Real hurt, real love. And maybe you won't always agree, but that's okay. What matters is how you listen. Can you sit with his truth without trying to reshape it into something more comfortable? Can you appreciate a different perspective, even if it clashes with your own? Because that's what emotional maturity looks like. And it's rare. The world is loud with opinions. But when someone feels truly heard, without interruption, without defense, that's unforgettable. So don't be afraid to ask, "What do you think about?" and then just listen. Not to reply, but to understand. That's where real intimacy begins. Laugh together. Talk embarrassing or hilarious stories. Laughter is one of the most disarming, humanizing forces on the planet. It cuts through tension, anxiety, awkwardness, and even silence. It reminds us that we don't have to be perfect to be lovable, and when it comes to deepening a connection with a man, there's almost nothing more powerful than being able to laugh together. Especially when that laughter comes from shared stories of glorious, ridiculous, very human failure. So how do you get there? Easy. Go first. Share something truly embarrassing from your life, not the kind that makes you seem adorably clumsy, but the kind that still makes you cringe a little. The time you confidently waved at a stranger who wasn't actually waving at you. The day you wore your shirt inside out to an important meeting. That moment when you completely butchered someone's name, twice. Whatever it is, own it, laugh at yourself, and mean it. Because self-deprecating humor, when it's rooted in confidence, is wildly attractive. It says, "I'm real, I'm grounded, and I don't take myself too seriously." Then, and only then, turn it around and say, "Okay, your turn. What's something totally ridiculous that's happened to you?" He might laugh and say, "Oh man, I've got too many," and then actually hesitate, because sharing an embarrassing story means showing imperfection. But when he sees that you're already in it, already laughing at yourself, he'll feel safe to meet you there. What unfolds next is often more than just a funny story. It's a moment of vulnerability in disguise. Because the things that embarrass us usually involve being exposed, caught off guard, or failing in front of others. And the ability to talk about those moments, to laugh at them, is a sign of someone who's done some emotional growing. Someone who understands that being human means being messy, and can celebrate it. You'll notice that the mood shifts after a story like that. The guard drops. You're both grinning. The air feels lighter. Suddenly, you're not sitting across from a polished version of each other. You're sitting with real people, flawed, funny, and free. That's the space where connection thrives. And sometimes, these conversations take on a playful competition. Okay, but have you ever? And it becomes this delicious back and forth of who's had the more hilariously awkward moment. From childhood disasters to first date fails, bad haircuts to weird text mix-ups, there's no shortage of material. What's even better? These stories tend to be remembered. You'll be driving later or brushing your teeth the next morning, and you'll randomly think about the time he once split his pants before a big presentation, and you'll start laughing again. Those kinds of memories stick. They become inside jokes, shared language, little threads that stitch two people together in quiet, unexpected ways. So don't underestimate the power of humor. It's not about being funny, it's about being light. It's about showing that you can both handle life's curveballs with grace and laughter. It's about creating a moment that says, I'm not perfect, and I know you're not either, and that's why I like you. Career and ambition, the path he's walking. A man's relationship to his work is rarely just about a paycheck. For many, it's intertwined with identity, purpose, pride, and legacy. It's where he pours energy, vision, discipline, and sometimes even pain. So when you ask about his career, not in a resume kind of way, but in a soul-searching, dream-honoring way, you're not just talking about a job. You're talking about who he's trying to become. Start with something open-ended but intentional, like, what are you building right now, and where do you hope it leads? That one question can unlock an entire map of where his focus is, what drives him, and what kind of life he's trying to design. Some men will light up instantly, excited to tell you about their startup, their promotion plan, their side hustle, or their long-term vision of early retirement in the mountains. Others might be quieter, more hesitant, especially if they're still figuring it out. And that's okay too. The goal here isn't to evaluate his success. It's to explore his journey. Ask him how he ended up in his field. Was it a childhood dream or a lucky accident? What's the hardest thing he's had to learn professionally? What's something he's proud of but doesn't get to talk about often? These are rich questions, not because they reveal ambition, but because they reveal character. And ambition, by the way, doesn't always look like climbing the corporate ladder. Some men dream of starting a farm, becoming a high school coach, or building a life that gives them the freedom to pick up their kids every day at 3 p.m. Whatever his version of success looks like, honor it. Reflect it back to him. Let him feel seen not for where he is on the journey, but for the direction he's choosing to go in. You'll also learn a lot about how he handles challenges. Work always involves conflict, pressure, setbacks, and reinvention. So ask, what's something that really tested you professionally, and how did you handle it? His answer will show you his resilience, his self-awareness, his leadership style, and maybe even his regrets. And if he's willing to share those honestly, it's a sign that he's not just growing a career, he's growing as a person. Career talk doesn't have to be stiff or formal. Let it flow naturally. One moment you're talking about his current job, and the next you're deep into a discussion about legacy, contribution, or how modern work culture affects people's mental health. These are not just career conversations, they're human conversations. And here's the magic. When you ask a man about his goals, what you're really saying is, I care about where you're going, and I respect the road you're walking. That kind of support, even in its simplest form, is rare. And it stays with him. Whether he's just starting out, rebuilding after failure, or standing at the top of something he's proud of, every man wants to feel like someone sees the weight he's carrying, and the future he's trying to reach. When you become that person, the dynamic between you shifts. You're not just two people talking, you're two paths crossing. Two stories unfolding, side by side. His view on love and relationships. There's something deeply revealing, and deeply connective, about asking a man what love means to him. Not the cheesy, overused, do you believe in love? Kind of question, but the grounded, thoughtful kind. The kind that says, I want to understand how your heart works. Because how someone views love and relationships tells you almost everything about how they give, receive, and experience intimacy. The beauty of this topic is that you don't need to make it about you two, at least not right away. This isn't, where are we going, or, do you want marriage? This is about the ideas, patterns, and lessons that shaped his understanding of closeness. Try something like, what does a truly healthy relationship look like to you, and then just listen. No correcting, no nudging, just curiosity. His answer might surprise you. Some men will speak with incredible clarity, naming respect, friendship, communication, and space as non-negotiables. Others might fumble a bit, trying to articulate something they've never really voiced. That's okay. What matters is that they try. In the attempt, you'll learn what they've noticed, what they've learned, what they regret, and what they crave. And if you're feeling bold, take it deeper. What did love look like when you were growing up? Was it loud and chaotic? Quiet and kind? Absent? Overbearing? His early models of love, whether they came from parents, movies, first heartbreaks, or best friends, laid the groundwork for how he now navigates closeness and vulnerability. Ask him about past relationships, gently, not to dig up drama, but to learn. What did a past relationship teach you about yourself? Is a question that opens space for growth. If he's honest, you'll see where he's evolved, and where he's still protecting himself. Some men will speak about lessons in boundaries. Others will admit to moments when they weren't emotionally present. If he can reflect without blame, especially without turning his exes into villains, that's a powerful sign of maturity. You can also ask about love in its broadest form. What does being loved well look like for you? His answer might reveal his love language, whether he values touch, time, words, support, or space. Knowing that helps you understand what makes him feel secure and seen. And it helps you share the same about yourself. The key here isn't to agree on everything, you won't. The key is to see whether he's thought about love, whether he wants to be good at it, and whether he's still learning. Because the truth is, we're all still learning. And a man who knows he has more to learn about love is far more trustworthy than one who thinks he's already mastered it. These conversations create an atmosphere of emotional truth, not heavy, not forced, but meaningful. They tell you whether he sees love as a transaction or a journey. Whether he associates commitment with safety or sacrifice. Whether he runs at the first sign of difficulty or stays to repair what's broken. When he shares, respond with grace. Reflect what he says. Ask more questions. Let him feel how different it is to be understood instead of just heard. In that space, something very rare happens. Two people realize they're not just compatible, they're emotionally aware, emotionally awake, and emotionally available. Fears, insecurities, and what keeps him up at night. Men are rarely asked about their fears. Society teaches them to be strong, silent, tough it out. They're taught to carry weight in private and smile in public. So when someone, especially a woman they care about, looks at them and says, "What scares you?" or "What's something you worry about but rarely say out loud?" it hits differently. It's unexpected, disarming, and, if approached with tenderness, transformative. This is not a question to toss out casually at a loud party or over a distracted dinner. This is one of those late night, phones down, I'm actually here with you, moments. Maybe you're lying on the couch or sitting on the floor, sipping tea, surrounded by silence. You lead gently, because this isn't about prying. It's about inviting. A great place to begin is with your own vulnerability. Say something like, "Sometimes I worry that I'll never fully relax, that I'll always carry this pressure to prove myself, even when no one's asking me to." It doesn't need to be dramatic, just real. And by saying it first, by being brave enough to be emotionally naked, you're signaling, it's safe here. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be real. What comes next might not be poetic. He might pause. He might deflect with humor. He might shrug and say, "I don't know," even though he does know, because naming fears out loud feels like admitting weakness. But if you're patient, if you hold the space, he might share things you never would have guessed. He might say he's afraid of failure, that everything he's building could fall apart. Or that he'll never live up to the potential others see in him. He might admit he worries about being a good partner, about being enough, about disappointing the people who matter most. Or that he feels lonely, even when surrounded by people. These are not small admissions. They're sacred, and when they're met with kindness, not pity, not advice, just understanding, something powerful shifts. A wall comes down, a new kind of closeness is born. Insecurities come in all forms: appearance, money, intelligence, emotional expression, sexual performance, career progress, social standing. Men are taught to suppress them, mask them, or overcompensate. But inside, they feel them just as deeply as anyone else. When you give him the space to voice those quiet worries, without judgment or quick-fix solutions, you become more than someone he dates. You become someone he trusts with his most fragile truths. Sometimes his fears won't be personal, but existential. He might lie awake thinking about the state of the world, the future, climate change, losing people he loves, running out of time. Let him say those things. Don't interrupt with, "It'll be fine." Let him express the dark thoughts too. That's part of being human. And here's the irony. When men are allowed to be soft, when they don't have to wear armor, they become stronger. Not in the performative way, but in the deeply grounded, emotionally integrated way. And relationships that welcome that kind of honesty, they last, because they're built on truth, not performance. So the next time you're curled up with someone you care about, ask softly, "What's something that keeps you up at night?" And when he answers, don't fix it. Just be there, hold the moment, let him exhale. That silence between his confession and your acceptance, that's where intimacy lives. Music, movies, books, his personal culture. On the surface, talking about music, films, or books might sound like casual conversation. But ask the right questions, and listen closely, and you'll start to see that these so-called hobbies are actually emotional maps. They tell you where he's been, what he's felt, what he values, and sometimes, what he's still trying to understand about himself. When a man says, "This movie changed the way I see the world," or, "This song hits me every time I hear it," pay attention. He's not just telling you what's on his Spotify playlist or his Netflix queue. He's sharing a window into his emotional architecture, the internal world most people never get to see. Start simply. What's a movie you could rewatch 100 times and never get tired of? He might mention a childhood favorite, a gritty indie film, or a cult classic. Whatever it is, follow up. Why that one? The answer might be nostalgia, a character he sees himself in, or a moment that made him feel understood when he needed it most. That's where the real story lives, not in the movie, but in why it matters to him. Ask him about music. What's a song that gets you every time, even if you don't know why? You'll learn what makes him feel grounded, heartbroken, hyped, or whole. A man's musical taste often reflects his emotional rhythm. Does he use music to escape, to heal, to pump himself up, or to slow everything down? The way he uses sound tells you a lot about how he manages his moods and memories. Books, too, reveal more than titles. Ask what book changed him, or which one he never finished, and why. You might discover his secret curiosity about philosophy, his hidden love for fantasy, or his deep respect for a certain writer who gave him the language he didn't know he needed. If he's not a reader, no problem. Ask instead, if someone made a movie about your life, what genre would it be? Now you're in storytelling territory, and that's where connection blooms. The point isn't to quiz him. It's to tap into the media that shaped him. The characters he admired, the worlds he escaped to, the lyrics that mirrored his heartbreak, the lines that stuck in his brain long after the screen went dark. These choices form a kind of emotional fingerprint, unique, intimate, quietly revealing. And don't forget to share your own. Tell him about the song that got you through a breakup, the movie you watched on repeat when you needed to feel something, the book that cracked you open in college. This isn't just about comparing tastes. It's about swapping pieces of soul through stories. About showing each other, this made me who I am. Cultural conversation is often dismissed as surface level, but that's a mistake. When done well, it becomes a playground for emotional truth. It gives you insight into how someone thinks, what they feel, how they escape, what they admire, and who they're becoming. And if you start seeing overlap, if your favorite films are his, or he knows the lyrics to that one obscure song you love, you feel it. That sudden click of, oh, you get me. So next time you're talking and things feel light, go a little deeper. Ask him, what story, in any form, music, movie, book, ever made you feel seen? His answer might just be the most honest thing he's said all night. His vision for the future. There's a moment in every meaningful connection when curiosity naturally shifts forward, not because you're trying to define the relationship, but because you want to understand the path the other person is on. That's where this question comes in. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? But not in a corporate interview kind of way. In a human, soulful, what kind of life are you quietly building kind of way. It's one of the most revealing questions you can ask. Because how someone imagines their future shows you their values, their priorities, their fears, and their secret hopes, often without them even realizing it. When you ask this, let it be gentle, casual, warm. Don't attach pressure or expectation. You're not asking, where do we fit in? You're asking, what direction are you facing, and what are you reaching for? That's a very different energy. One invites openness, the other invites defensiveness. He might say he wants to start a business, buy a house, pay off debt, travel, go back to school, or move closer to family. He might mention goals like stability, creativity, freedom, or contribution. Every one of those dreams reveals a deeper truth, what he longs for, and what he's willing to work for. And sometimes, he might not know. That's okay. You can ask instead, what would your ideal day look like in 5 years? That takes the pressure off grand ambition and anchors the vision in daily life. Does he imagine slow mornings, working with his hands, raising kids, surfing before breakfast, making coffee for someone he loves? Or is it fast-paced, high-energy, mission-driven, globetrotting? The fantasy matters, not because it's realistic, but because it shows you what kind of life feels right to him. As he talks, pay attention to the tone. Is he excited, hesitant, ashamed, proud? The way he talks about his future is just as telling as the content. Does he believe he's capable of change? Does he believe he deserves good things? Is he chasing something that lights him up, or running from something that scares him? And here's the beautiful part, you don't need to agree with his vision. But understanding it allows you to see whether your paths might, someday, run alongside each other. You'll find out if he's building a future that resonates with your own values, or if you're walking in opposite directions. This is also a powerful way to show support. If he opens up about a 5-year goal, and you reflect it back with belief, that's actually amazing. I can totally see you doing that. You become someone who amplifies his vision, rather than doubts it. That kind of encouragement is rare, especially for men who are often expected to have it all figured out but rarely feel seen in the trying. And don't forget to share your own. You don't need to paint a perfect roadmap, just express what kind of life you're hoping to build. That way, it's a two-way window, not an interrogation. You're both holding up pieces of the future like puzzle parts, seeing if there's alignment, possibility, resonance. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about where he sees himself in 5 years. It's about who he wants to become. And when you listen with heart, without needing to shape or control that answer, you become part of something deeper. A shared vision of life, maybe. Or at the very least, a real, honest understanding of the road he's on. And that's how you find out if you want to walk it together. Ladies, sometimes it's not about the topic of conversation, it's about the energy behind it. We spend so much time trying to figure out what to say, what question will make him open up, what topic will create connection, what moment will lead to something more. But here's the truth, it's not the topic that creates intimacy. It's the tone, the intention, the energy you bring into the space between you. You could be talking about something as simple as what he ate for lunch or as deep as his childhood heartbreak, and if the energy is warm, curious, present, and real, that conversation becomes sacred. It becomes a space where walls come down and honesty steps forward. That's what men, good men, respond to. Not flash, not games, but realness. So how do you bring that energy? You slow down, you listen with your whole body, not just your ears. You ask because you're genuinely interested, not because you're trying to steer the moment. You let go of the need to impress, and you root into something quieter, connection. You make eye contact, you hold silence when needed. You don't rush to fill space, you let the space fill you. And it helps to remember that connection doesn't thrive under pressure. You don't have to be the funniest, smartest, most dazzling version of yourself. You don't have to win the moment. You just have to show up, fully, as you are. When you do that, something magnetic happens, he feels it. And he'll want to meet you there. Be present, be curious, be real. Presence is rare these days. We live in a world of constant distraction. Notifications, to-do lists, future plans, past worries. But when you sit across from someone and give them your full, undivided attention, that's rare. That's felt, and that's the beginning of real intimacy. Curiosity is the spark that keeps any connection alive. Not just asking questions, but asking with care. Asking not to get somewhere, but because you want to know. There's a softness to true curiosity. It invites rather than interrogates. It says, I want to understand you, even the parts you're still figuring out. And being real, that's your greatest superpower. It means showing up without the script, without the polished version of yourself. It means being okay with awkwardness, with vulnerability, with the truth. It means letting your heart take the lead, even when your mind wants to protect you. Realness invites realness. The moment you stop performing, you give him permission to drop the act too. That's when the magic happens, when two people stop trying to be impressive and start being human. You don't need to perform. You just need to connect. Let go of the pressure to be perfect. Let go of the date persona, or the cool girl mask. You are already enough, without curating, without strategizing. Connection doesn't come from perfect timing or saying all the right things. It comes from moments of honesty. From laughter that's slightly too loud. From eye contact that lingers a beat longer than expected. Stop editing yourself mid-sentence. Stop worrying about whether your story is interesting enough. If it's true to you, it's worth telling. If it matters to you, it matters. The more you allow yourself to be genuine, not polished, but present, the more you'll attract the kind of man who wants to meet you there, not in the version of yourself you think you need to be. And remember, men want to be seen, just like we do. This part is so often forgotten. We grow up thinking men are the confident ones, the emotionally unshakable ones, the pursuers. But underneath that social armor is a quiet truth. Men long to be seen too. Not just admired or desired, but understood. They want someone to notice the details. The way they listen more than they speak. The tension they carry in their shoulders after a hard day. The way they soften when they talk about their mom, or light up when describing a dream they've never said out loud. They want someone who sees beyond the performance. Someone who asks, what's really going on under there, and sticks around for the answer. When a man feels seen, truly seen, something powerful happens. He opens, he unfolds, he lets go of the version of himself he thinks he needs to be, and instead reveals the one he actually is. And that's the version you want to know. That's the one worth building something with. Give them the chance, and you might be surprised by what they show you. You never know what someone is carrying inside until they feel safe enough to show you. Sometimes, behind the quiet smile or the sarcastic comment is a man who's been hurt, who's still healing, who's still figuring out how to be soft in a world that demanded he be hard. And when you create a space where he feels safe to be, you might discover depth you never expected. He might tell you about his biggest regret, or the person he misses the most, or the future he's terrified to want because he's afraid he won't get it, or the wild hope he's never said out loud. All of that is real. All of that is waiting to be known, not just by anyone, but by someone willing to sit still, listen close, and say, I'm here. You don't have to hide. And isn't that what we're all looking for? Not someone perfect, but someone present. Someone who gets us, even in the moments we don't get ourselves. Someone who holds space, not with answers, but with presence. If you love this, share it with a friend who's also navigating the wild world of modern conversations. You never know whose love life you might upgrade today. Because this kind of connection, the honest, real, emotionally intelligent kind, is contagious. And sometimes, all it takes is one question. One moment of courage, one shift in energy. So pass it on. Send it to the friend who's tired of small talk. The one who wants to go deeper. The one who's ready to stop performing and start connecting. Because love doesn't always begin with fireworks. Sometimes, it begins with a real question and a quiet pause, and someone brave enough to stay for the answer.